Hi. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yes,
we
I
can.
can.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, we're glad. I want to especially thank you because it was a little discussion and without any delay or any formality, you made yourself available. We especially appreciate on behalf of everyone from Study Abroad Group. You're saying thanks for making it a day with us. And so let's go into the business of today. So before we into real question, we would like you to briefly introduce yourself to our viewers. Those listening, just tell us about yourself, your education, work experience, and research prior to Canada is your experience why in Nigeria. Over to you, Scholar Peter.
All right. Hi everyone. So my name is Peter Isesele, as you can already see from my Zoom, um, name. And so my bachelor's was in biochemistry at Ambrosali University in Edo State, Nigeria. And then after that, I did my master's. I came to Canada for my master's in 2017 at Memorial University. And then, so I'm currently doing my PhD at the University of Alberta. And not a lot of, research experience actually before I came to Canada, which is also like an encouragement to everybody. You don't need to have a vast, the only experience I had was actually my thesis, right? My undergrad project, the final year project. So that was the only experience I had, prior to coming to Canada. And then, I did some work here and there, quality control analyst, in a pharmaceutical company, in a wine industry in Nigeria before I headed over to Canada. So yeah, so that is all for now.
Yeah, let's be, sometimes as sweet as we encourage people, I like to be a bit realistic. What I mean being realistic is sometimes I always ask some things like, you finish with what class of honor in your bachelor's? So people can
Okay,
put
so
the same in your line.
okay. So I finished the first class in biochemistry. So yeah, I finished the first class.
Yeah, someone is already asking a question here. You said for your master's, you didn't talk about what you studied during your
Oh,
master's. Can you just tell us?
okay. Yeah, so my master's was in biochemistry actually, but my research focus was in obesity and nutrition. So kind of following on from the same line.
Okay. So yeah, before I move into more questions, I know Canada has always been everybody's dream. But before thinking of Canada, were there other countries you considered after finishing your bachelor's? Were there other countries you tried? What were the things you faced before you finally decided, let me try Canada?
Actually, I didn't even know about, I wasn't even thinking about Canada for a start. So my first point of call was actually started with Germany, right? So I applied to some, in fact, at that time, I didn't even have my international passport, because I wasn't that serious about it. I was something very funny. I was using one of my national ID card at that time, and they said they requested for international passport. That's actually when I, actually had to go apply for. So I tried schools in Germany. I tried one school in Switzerland, and then I entered UK. I applied to probably maybe like 10, 20 schools in the UK because I was looking for full scholarship, right? I was applying to the Chevening scholarship, Commonwealth scholarship, I pretty much got, you can, I got like half funding, but there was even no way I could even pay for the other half, right? So I was looking for full scholarship. And then after that, I was kind of, a friend of mine introduced me to US. So I was kind of thinking about US before another friend of mine told me, hey, this is how Canada works, right? So we actually graduated together. So that was actually where I started exploring all of the Canada option when I discovered that, oh, it's even much more easier to get a fully funded scholarship in Canada.
Yeah, because what actually interested me while you were talking was your UK experience. I think we share some things in common about the experience. I also tried Chevening Commonwealth. I even applied to like I think 15 universities in the UK. I got 12.
Yeah.
And the partial thing, if you are from the rich home, it's quite easy to get to UK. So that just let's leave that aside. What interested me to inviting you for this program is actually your story about your Canada. As in, I found some things quite interesting. I would like our viewers to know about it. What was the experience like in your first phase of applying to Canada? What was the experience like? What is the major thing that can give you a hedge in getting to Canada?
So I think if you, for the most part, if you have a good GPA, I do a lot of videos, how to get scholarship with low GPA, those ones are kind of a little bit of messy after death. It's tough. I won't, if you watch my videos, I don't paint things, I just kind of tell you the way that it's really tough but it's possible. Okay, it's possible if you do a whole lot of other things, to make. I think this GPA is a very important, it's a very important point. If your GPA is, at least a second class upper, it's just the higher it is, the better. The reason is because the professors that you're applying to, they want you to apply for, they don't want to spend their money in probably the first year. They want you to apply for university scholarship, and a lot of the university scholarship, majority of them for entrance scholarship, majority of them are based on GPA, right? So that's kind of why they usually give preference to, people with high GPA. And then probably if work experience is also added, that might also be an advantage as well. So in fact, the professor that I worked with for my the supervisor I got initially, on his website, it was stated specifically you need to have a first class. That was for that type of scholarship, right? So that was like what they required. So, but there are a lot of scholarships, whether you have like a second class upper for sure, lots of scholarships that you can definitely still apply for. I don't know if I covered everything that you asked, or there's something that I
Yeah,
missed.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay,
But
my
one of the
story.
things you said on your YouTube channel that I watched that period was the length of time it took you to get a supervisor. So I would like you
Yeah,
to
yeah. Okay.
shed a light about that. Yeah.
You know, so when I started sending emails, probably when I was doing my youth service, okay, I actually applied to University of Ottawa first. I did not know that you have to get a supervisor because I was just kind of new to the game, right? So I just applied, I paid the application fee, and then they said, "Oh, we've looked at your application and it's very nice. We're going to give you admission, but just get a supervisor to accept you." I emailed and emailed at University of Ottawa. They were always saying, "Oh, sorry, we are not accepting any new students." So for me, I was thinking, well, since I have first class, even though my email is not that good, it's still going to be fine, right? So that was actually the mistake that I made initially. And to be honest, they don't really care, right? They just want to make sure that you'll be able to do the thing. So whether you have 5.0 out of 5.0, if your email is crap, that is a very, bad first impression, right? And then I started sending emails, and then I checked, Memorial University, like University of Alberta. I reached out to some students to say, hey, I want to apply, right? And then they said, okay, just send email. I reached out to professors at University of Manitoba. I think pretty much I've sent probably close to 30 or to 50 emails, and I haven't still gotten a response, right? So at that time, I have to tell my friend. So that time, my friend already got a supervisor, right? So I had to like, oh, I need to know what I'm doing wrong. Okay. So I had to speak to the guy to say, okay, let's actually review my email again and again and again. We looked through it, and then there were some that I sent. He said, "No, you have to add some few things to it." Actually, at some point, I said, I told myself, I'm not doing it again. To be honest, I said, I'm just tired. I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing it again. And then what now motivated me was that my friend that actually introduced me to the game, he got a supervisor, and then he got a visa. Then he moved to Canada. So he was kind of, still telling me not to give up. He was not telling me how beautiful Canada is and how good it would be for me to be here, right? So that's actually what motivated me. Okay, let me actually keep on trying, right? And even at some point, I even run out of data, right? And my other brother would like, okay, I'll subscribe your phone today. You must have data. You must send that next email, right? So I think I just kept on sending email until, one day, probably after a couple of months or maybe close to a year, right? Then I finally was able to get a supervisor, and then the whole magic all happened, right? So yeah, not giving up was the key. I almost gave up, but a friend of mine. But that's why it's good to have. That's why you watch, maybe YouTube channels to get yourself encouraged. Whenever you feel like you're giving up, just get encouraged. But when you hear other people talk about their story, yeah.
Yeah, the major reason why I actually chipped this question in was I understand the fact that some people that are just new into applying to outside Nigeria or outside their country, they think it's that easy. When you say everybody say I've moved to US, I've moved to Canada, I've moved to Australia. But I just want them to understand the fact that persistency is key and that
Absolutely.
it's not actually something that come that easy. Behind every one traveling, there have always been many rejections and failure. Though someone asked
Absolutely.
the question, but we still come back to the question. The question is about
Sure.
having low CGA and how to navigate into Canada, even with your low CGPA. We'll still come back to the question.
Sure.
So from your experience before getting your first admission for master's program, what will you I know you mentioned it earlier, but what you say actually make the difference between your previous trial in getting a supervisor and how you finally got the main supervisor? What was the main thing that you think worked for you?
You know, for a start, I focused on myself. Talking about all my achievements, I was the best graduate student. I was this, I won this award, I won this. So it was all about me, okay? Because I was thinking, oh, this is actually going to make their head to swell, right? Until I have to change the strategy to make it about them. So that's why I always encourage people. If you're sending an email, once you introduce yourself in the first paragraph, it's okay. Next thing, you have to move straight in. Why are you interested in professor's research? And then, don't any all these generic email. I like your research area. It's cool. It's good. And so what? Hundreds of people send them those emails because I actually, what I do, by the reason of what I do, my professor, like my supervisor, is actually aware of what I do. So oftentimes I just have a chat with her and say, hey, people are asking me this question. So maybe, for example, people ask me, why do professors not reply? So I actually ask her, why do people not reply? And then she laughed and then gave me some points, right? Why this generic email? So I think I was just sending probably one email, just compose it and send it to like two, three professors, just change the title, which is a really, it's a bad way of sending an email, right? So I made it about them, talk about their research area, talk about, they want to hear something like, oh, I read your recent publication published, in the Journal of Physiology in, 2 months ago. It was quite interesting that you found out this result. I'll be interested to explore this further. So they will know that, okay, this person did not just go to my page. They've gone an extra mile to talk about what I am doing. Okay. That's one part. And then the second thing is sometimes they also want to see what is a little bit about your future goals, right? And sometimes when you say, I just want to do a master's and so what, So when you tell them, my goal, I want to do a master's, and then after master's, I will, want to, do a PhD, and then probably they want to hear that you would like to go into the academia because that is what they are doing. So you want to make their head to swell, which I know that, like probably 95% of PhD students, they don't want to go in, don't want to become professors, right? But for a start, for a start, you want to, just talk about your future area. And then the last part is just quickly, you have to mention why you think you are a good fit in their lab, okay? Especially if there are some few courses you did during your undergrad, you can just chip this in. I see that, for example, my professor works that during my master's, she was working in lipids, right? So just mentioning like, I did a course in lipid biochemistry and then I had a good grade in that and I learned this and like that. It's a good way to show that you actually are a fit, for the program. However, one more thing is that you need to add that you're open to learning. You don't want to say you know everything. Let me just give you guys a quick story. When I was doing my master's, we interviewed two people. One of them was from, like, two of them were from India, right? One of them was just talking about, I've published this paper, I've done this experiment, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I know this, I know all
I
the
know.
techniques,
I
and
too know.
yeah. Then the other lady was like, well, I already had my first master's. I'm not so, I don't have a lot of research experience, but I kind of have an idea about the topic, about the things you do in the lab and some of the experiments and all that. I am very open to learning. Okay. Actually, what happened was, so at the end of the day, my prof, she would usually ask, what do you guys think? Do you want the guy or the lady? Actually, I said, well, yeah, the guy is, it might be difficult to teach. You understand? As a new student, he might be difficult to teach, because
He
you
thinks he
like, you
knows
already
better
know.
than others.
Yes. Then we're like, okay, I think the other lady, my prof was like, are you sure you don't just want to, because it's a lady, you want to get in our lab? But at the end of the day, the lady was chosen, right? So sometimes being honest about who you are as well, it also matters. Why you talk about all the things that makes you qualified, you have to always mention that, you're open to learning.
To
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you really did justice to that because when I was actually coming here, this was one of the questions my professor asked. It was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "I'm open to learning. I'm not strict to my former discipline." I think it's
Yeah.
also very important for us to learn that. So yeah, many people actually desire to go kind of, but one of the things I noticed, many don't get the admission. So can you just itemize some of those things? Can you just itemize few the reasons why people get rejection apart from those things you've earlier mentioned? Can you mention maybe
Do you
one
mean
or
for
two things
admission
for
or visa? Okay,
admission? Admission.
admission. Yeah. To be honest, if you have been able to secure okay, if you, there are a lot of people that apply, and after applying, that's when they start looking for supervisor. That alone, most of the time, they won't even process because it's so, I mean, I'm talking specifically about research and scholarship, right? For if you're applying for a course-based master, which I think some people might also want to apply for, just apply and then the admission committee reviews your application, okay? And for that, things like your GPA is one of the most crucial thing because there is a minimum requirement, okay? I think a lot of schools in Canada, they usually say 65 to 70%, like a B average in the last 2 years of studies, right? So even though your GPA was like 3.4, if your third and your fourth year were really good, you will still be considered. So you see why, but if it's like a 2-2 and it's like your third and your fourth year, because they consider the last 2 years, so they start calculating from the last course till they get to 60 credit or 60 units as we are aware of. Okay. That 60 unit might be your third and your fourth, your third and
Fourth
your fourth
year.
year. yeah, if those ones are good, you're okay. So GPA is a major problem, and then another thing, why if your letters of recommendation are also not superb, it might be a problem, because if you go and tell a professor, maybe from Nigeria or from any other place you're journey from, your university you attended, you go tell a particular professor or your course advisor that you're not really very close to, they don't really understand this game a lot, and they just write a very, how these lecturers write something
They
very
just write generic.
casual,
They write generic in
generic,
casual.
yeah, that doesn't fly, because if you are competing against this, you're competing against the best of the
The
best.
best, yeah, yeah.
I've been privileged to be part of in my department. I'm in the graduate committee, so we actually review students apply. We review like entrance scholarship for these students. You can see the calibers of students that are applying, so you can't afford to lowball yourself and send things that are not top notch, because sometimes,
Especially,
like, I read.
especially those Indians, those guys.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, those guys are you see sometimes when I see result, I'll be
ten,
like, wow, are you even sure I know what I'm doing? You see like
10
people
over
having
20.
is
A or
is
two.
is is so those are the people you're competing with, right? So that's why you have to
Yeah,
put in your best, and then your letter of, or what's it called, the statement of intent, right? It has
yeah.
to also be top notch, okay? But on the good side is that if you already secure a supervisor, there and if I before your supervisor accepts you, he or she will make sure that you meet that minimum requirement, right? And then for the most part, when you apply for admission, they are the one that will now be advocating for you to say, well, this student, he or she meet the requirement, right? So, but the school will still confirm and double check that you actually meet the requirement. So I think the bulk of the work for scholarship mostly is getting that supervisor. Once you get that supervisor, although you still have to make sure that your application is top notch, because if every other supervisor is accepting students, the department can only accommodate a certain number, right? Because there are sometimes the funding will be coming from the department. So in that case, you might get a supervisor and not get admission if your things are not top notch. Your reference letter, your statement of interest, and one last thing is that your statement of interest, sometimes if you've had a conversation with your prospective supervisor, like in my own case, she already told me this is the project I'm going to be working on, right? So I just kind of wrote my letter based on
Just
that.
on that. Mm,
Yes, yes. But if you apply for a course-based master's where you don't know anybody, no professor is speaking for you, then you actually have to put more work in your letter of intent, because most people applying there, their GPA are crazy.
okay. Thanks a lot for doing this. Someone, let me just, before I move further into my question, someone does ask the question that he finished his bachelor's 2013 and is developing now. Is it possible? Is there a good chance to get a master's even though he graduated 2013? That's like almost 9 years ago, I think. Nine.
So yeah, I know, like, here that you see people that finish their masters 10 years ago, sorry, their bachelors, and then they're coming for masters. The game changer in that is, what have you been doing
Been
in all of
doing,
those 10
yeah,
years?
work experience, yeah.
Yeah. So if, let's say, you read chemistry, and then you've been doing marketing for 9 years, and now you want to go into the scholarship route, right? It's really difficult, right? But if you've been working, let's say, as a quality control, something relating to that, you can argue your case to them to say that, even though I graduated 10 years ago, I still know what I'm doing. I've been working. So that can also fly. That's why I always just encourage people. If you graduated 10 years ago and you read, let's say, biology, for example, and then you'll be working in sales for those 9 years, it's better to find something relating to, even when applying for your visa. even though you get the admission, when you're applying for your visa, you have to build a case to say that I've been working on this. Now I've been doing this. Now I want to apply for this master. This is how this master is going to be important. So that's why one of the first thing I tell people is come up with a convincing game plan. Once you can come up with a convincing game plan, then you now decide on, okay, that's why, in my mentorship program, a lot of people come to me most of the time, and then so no worry, let's talk. Then I review. I say, okay, tell me what you've been doing with your life, excluding the food you've been eating. Just tell me, tell me all the courses you've been, all your work experience. Then I can answer, okay, from what I can see, this is going to be the best course that you can apply for. So, yeah, so that's what I'll say on that.
Yeah, before I move into a question someone just asked, I'd like you to discuss how able to, after securing the admission for your master's, how were you able to get your visa, how were you to that. Then after I've asked that question before I ask the real question. This guy just asked,
Okay.
how do you get your visa and go after the admission?
Well, I actually did everything myself. My elder brother at that time had already applied for a Canadian visa, so he kind of understands the process. But at that time, Naira for those that are familiar with Naira it became my, every day, I was just reading through trend just to see what worked for people, right? So I read at that time. I don't really think there was not a lot of YouTube videos on this topic at that time. If you from 2015, 2016, it just probably in the last 3 years that you can, if you just go on YouTube, then you can see like thousands of videos on this topic, right? So if there were probably videos at that time, I probably would have been subscribing every day to make sure I finish all of the videos to get insight. So the first thing that I did after getting my admission and then it's called that, it came with a scholarship, right? Then I started to set up the account. And then even though I had a scholarship, for my proof of funds, I still showed, an extent, like my brother still showed his own statement of account. Okay. In fact, I used two people, my brother and the one other family friend. It's not compulsory. Okay. If you have a fully funded scholarship, it's fine not to show an additional thing, but just to be on the safe side, because when you come to whether Canada or US or the UK, your stipend, your scholarship, it might take around 2 to 3 weeks before you start receiving your stipend, right? So those your external, things you add to your application are the things that will tell the visa officer that, well, this person, at least they can survive in the first 3 weeks before they start getting their stipend. And peradventure anything happen to their scholarship, there is a backup. So that's why I kind of added that. And then for my letter of explanation, I tried to read a lot of letter of explanation that some other people have written in the past just to get an idea, of how they built their case, right? So, I explained everything. I talked about actually your letter of explanation is your interview, because in the US you go to the visa office and they interview you, right? But in Canada they don't have the chance to ask you any questions. So think about your letter of explanation as your interview. For example, you ask a person, why do I want to study Canada? If you are asked that question by the visa officer, how will you answer? You will now put that in your statement of interest. If they ask you, okay, tell me about your funding and your financial, how you're going to, settle your finances, you put all of those things down. And then the most important part of it is when you're done with Canada, what are you going to do back? Talking about home ties, you have to hammer that. In fact, if you can put it in capital letter, please do. Put it in the capital letter and put some emoji and say, listen to this, right? Because they really want to see that. And although when you come here, they will be luring you to stay, to be honest, because they will be enticing you of the way to stay. But if you're applying, you have to show that you are going to leave.
You're going
It's
back.
you know. So it's like, why are these people doing this, right? But that is just how it is, right? So that's another thing. And then I had the computer at home, and a printer to do all my scanning and everything. So I had to compress, because sometimes you upload the file is too much, so you have to kind of compress everything together. So it took a lot of time, right, to gather all of those. Actually, I think the day I submitted my application, I was awake about, I think, 4 a.m. because I will upload, I will download again, check it, read it again and again and again, right? So I'll say your letter, I'll just, because I've done, this for people, a lot. I've applied for a lot of visa for people that actually got it. Number one thing, your letter of explanation. Number two, your proof of funds. Okay.
Like how much?
Then
Like how much can someone look towards if planning for proof of funds to Canada?
So it depends, right? So is the person coming for research or course based? Are you coming for masters or for batch? I think majority of people here are for masters or PhD, I guess. So if you are coming for a course based masters, okay, you will need to have at least $10,000 to show for proof of funds, and
Ten
then if
Canadian
it is,
dollar.
yeah, 10,000 Canadian dollars, okay, for to show as
Okay.
proof of funds. And then if it is most masters for obviously here are 2 years. If you can show minimum of 1 year tuition, full tuition for 1 year, because most of the schools they will not require you to pay any tuition deposit for majority of the masters, except you apply for these colleges. Okay, some colleges can tell you to pay like maybe $2,000. For the acceptance. Most Canadian universities don't do that. So at least 1 year. If you have 2 years, it's much better. Okay, so minimum of even though you are applying for a 2 years diploma, minimum 1 year. So if your tuition, let's say, is $20,000, you need to have at least $10,000 for tuition, at least minimum, and then plus another additional $10,000 for cost of living, right? And then the same for I mean most PhD usually come with funding anyway. So if you can show if you already have fully funded scholarship either for masters and PhD, if you don't even if your sponsor, your brother, your sister, your father, mother, they can show their statement, is fine. You don't really need to. For me, my statement of account was like 50,000 that I showed because I told them I was done working. You understand? So I don't want to start, you know, because that time I was just working like with my brother's company as a quality control. So I wasn't really being paid like salary because like a family company. So I didn't want to start, hyping that,
Compounding things. Mm-hmm.
and then I will now have to start bringing letter of references from my company and letter of all I didn't want that. So I just told him I finished my NYC, I'm just fresh out of this. So that's why my account is this. But I got a scholarship, right? But my brother and like his friend, they just showed their statement of account. So even for bachelors, if you have like your parents, that will probably have at least 2 to 3 years of tuition, that should be fine. You don't need to worry if for bachelors, I mean, you are just probably fresh out of high school, so you don't need to worry yourself about that. Then for masters, if it's course based, so you now ask yourself, am I sponsoring myself or I have an external sponsor? Because you can be applying for course based and you'll be having an external sponsor. If you are sponsoring yourself, two things: are you doing business or you are self-employed? If you are self-employed, then you have to have your business registration, a letter of reference from your own, maybe from the management of the company. Then if you are employed with the government, then a reference letter from the establishment you're working in. That will do it. They don't, yeah. So that's basically it. I know I probably have missed some things, but if you ask me the questions, I will remember exactly. If I've missed something, just ask and then I will definitely come back to it.
Someone just asked now that even with my fully funded for masters or PhD, like how much exactly should I have in my account?
To be honest, there is no amount specifically. Okay, so the Canadian government, they don't, because your fully funded scholarship actually covers your tuition and your cost of living. I've
Okay.
seen some people that just, if you apply for visa, they will say admission letter, and then they will say proof means, what they call a proof of means of finance, whatever, financial support. People, they just upload the page that talk about their scholarship in that position, and for a lot of people, it works for them. Okay, then if you just want to be on the safe side, as an addition, if you on your own you have like $5,000, that is all fine. Okay, that is all fine. Even though you don't have it, don't worry yourself. If you have like maybe your brother or sister that can show their own finances, that's fine. That way, they too, you are kind of now leveraging another person's documentation, right? Because if they are big boys or big girls and they have a lot of money, they can show their, statement of account, they can show maybe their landed properties, so that way it's like a backup, right? But technically you don't have to. Okay, you can just put your scholarship there, but to be on the safe side, 5,000, 10,000, it is fine. But
Okay.
more, if you have more, like if your your guardian, if they are politicians and they have $1 million, you want to show it, it's okay. Okay, it's fine.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so why do people get rejection for their visa? Because I know quite a large number of people who got the admission, but they got Canadian visa rejection, which could not make them for their studies. So why? And I think the,
Yeah.
the ratio is always very high. I've seen a lot by people have to just move to the US because they had a bad plan. So why?
These people, Canada, it's how would I put it now? The whole visa application thing is like a secret pot, you know. What I mean is that sometimes it all depends on the person reviewing it. So I'll just mention the most common ones, and then I will tell you what they do. The number one thing they will say, we've reviewed the application, we are rejecting your what's it called, your study permit application based on, number one, you've not demonstrated to us that after your study you are going back to your country. So they are basically talking about home ties.
Home
Okay,
ties.
so
Okay.
yes, so you have to, so some of the things you can show for home ties, if you are married, you can, usually, to me, I usually encourage people, if possible, apply a loan. Okay, so that you can use your, if you are the husband or the wife, you can use your spouse and your children as hope, and say, well, I can't leave them all. Once I'm done with my studies, I'm going back, to my children or to my family. That's one thing. And then if you are single, if you want to use, like, let's say, if you're working somewhere and you want to, if you can get a study leave from them, that's fine. you know to be honest, if you are single, and especially fresh graduates, they don't really, they know that their eye never to tear like that. I know, most of you understand that their eye never to tear. If they see that this person is more advanced, they know that this person can come here and decide not to, maybe they decide to not go to the school, right? So they look at all of those things, the stage you are in your life, to determine how they will judge. For example, they can deny people based on travel history, to say that, oh, you've not traveled before. But for me, I got my international, I actually applied for my international passport in March, of 2017. And then, even when my spouse actually accepted me, these immigration people, now my passport was delayed. Then the passport came out. So my passport was fresh. I actually got it 1 month before I applied, and I got it, right? So the travel history is not, it's if they see other excuses, they will just look for something to say. Okay, So that's another thing. Another reason why they deny people is they will say based on your study plan. Study plan means that, let's say, like I mentioned before, you study bachelor's in engineering. You'll be working as a let's say you'll be working as a salesperson.
Salesperson.
After like 8 years, you are not saying you are going to apply for a diploma in electrical engineering. It doesn't just blend. Okay, it doesn't blend. So they will say, I actually saw somebody when the person told me why they denied the person. So I asked the person, okay, what did you study? So don't be deceived by getting admission. They don't that is not getting admission, it does not move them. Okay, it does not move them. It is your study plan, right? So that's another thing. Your study plan need to match either your experience or your educational qualifications. It has to
Yeah, so
match one of those things.
let me ask this question. Someone does ask now that on his old passport he was rejected, though he has a new passport. What is his chances in the new trial?
Whether old or new passport, you have your unique client identification number,
Identification.
UCI. So if they put in your UCI, or everything about you will come out. Okay, that's why if you are filling your form, there is a form they call family information. That family information, they will tell you to sign that everything is correct. They will tell you if you are going to apply in the future, we are going to verify this family information. If you say you don't have siblings, for example, maybe you didn't include your siblings, then maybe when you now get to Canada, you are trying to invite your siblings for your graduation. They look at your family information like, this guy, you did not put it. Did they just give birth to your brother now and your brother just grew up? So for your passport, whether you change the passport or new old passport, they have the record. But whether they denied you or not, they don't just automatically say, oh, we denied this person before. When you're applying again, we are just going to say no to you, right? So they judge each application based on the merit of that application. But the reason why they rejected your previous application, if you have not done justice to that exhaustively and explain the capital letters and you apply again, they're still going to deny you. So make sure you spend time. If they say they deny you based on the fact that that another reason why they deny is probably they will say based on personal assets or finances. That is very vague. Okay, because someone that just finished, let's say you just finished undergrad and you're planning to apply for masters, what asset are
Okay.
so what asset are you actually, you can't form an asset that you don't have. So that
Okay.
is a generic term. But if you actually go ask them further, because there is this what we call GCMS notes, that note is actually, they will not explain why they actually denied. Probably, maybe they looked at the statement of account you showed and they saw some inconsistency. They will just categorize everything based on finance and personal assets.
Yeah, I think the person has made a clarification. It says it was not a Canadian embassy that rejected. So if it was
You
probably as long with a US or another
you
country.
must when you are filling your application, they will ask you, have you been denied? Have you applied to any other country? And if you have been rejected visa, you have to click on yes. And then you now explain what you applied for and why you were denied. Because I actually saw somebody that applied for Canada, and Canada and US, they kind of
Same you
share some few
biometric.
things. Yeah, yeah. So this person applied for Canada and she was rejected. Okay, when she went to apply for US, the visa, when they're asking you questions, they already know the answer is sitting in front of them. So they asked the person if they've applied for any other country before, like Canada, or the person said no. And they just okay, denied, because they saw that the person applied before and it was rejected. So you have to declare that you applied for this country and you were rejected. To be honest, just mention that, okay? But focus on your current application, on the genuinity of your current application.
Okay. Thanks a lot for the clarification. So, yeah, Scholar Ali Damola, can you come on, please? At least you can also ask quick questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, my question just revolved around about some of the things you said. I think from personal experience, I got the a supervisor in Canada, University of Western Ontario. But I don't know what happened between the submission of my application till the admission day. But I noticed during this period, the guy, professor, stopped responding. So I kept asking him like, what are my chances and all, but it just stopped. And so, what do you think might be wrong during those period?
It's a very their funding, okay, their funding is a very kind of a volatile thing. Okay. So sometimes when you contact them and they tell you, oh, we are going to accept you, apply. Okay. And in the process, maybe they see another student that is in, let's say, in their school that is willing to do like the masters or PhD, and they see that it's going to be easier for them. Sometimes they just go with that person. Okay. So I know somebody that he contacted the professor, so okay, apply. And then after he applied, he was contacted the prof. The prof was no longer responding, so it happens, right? And I always tell people, if you contact a prof once, twice, and three times they are not responding, and they sometimes maybe they are away, they consider, oh, maybe I'm away, if you don't see that, I would say, just keep looking for other supervisors, but I mean, it can be maybe they haven't had a chance to read through your message, but to be honest, if they really want you, from my experience, if you send them an email, it's a priority to them. Okay, they are going to try, because if they have it because my current professor, whenever she has a student, that she's already accepted, she's always asking, oh, have you, applied for admission? What stage are you in your visa application process? And all of those things, right? Especially with the admission, because that's the most important thing. So if they are no longer replying, maybe either the funding got finished miraculously, it might happen, or probably they got another student, which I think is the most common reason why they might decide to choose another person. Because I've had that case before. A professor gave a tentative positive response to say, okay, I will look into it, but they end up not replying. So it might be that they've gotten another person, or probably, yeah, that's usually the most, or they are no longer just interested in the person. That can also happen.
Okay, one more thing. Based on your past experience and your mentorship program, like the US, we have some schools that we call them, they're generous with funding. So in Canada, we have some schools like that they have a lot of funding compared to the rest.
To be honest, the big schools have more funding than the smaller schools. For example, if you check the ranking of schools in Canada, University of Toronto, number one, they have like millions of dollars in funding. Then University of British Columbia, number two, McGill University, number three, University of Alberta, number four, McMaster, and then Calgary, University of Calgary, and then probably Western University. They have a lot of funding, but the problem is that they are too competitive. Those big shots, they have a lot of funding, but they are too competitive. I usually recommend to people, okay, schools like, for example, Acadia University, right? They are kind of like a smaller, Mount Allison University, Acadia University. If you check the ranking of those universities, you will see them. those professors, they are not the big shots in the research in their, they may not be the big shot in their area. So they may not have a lot of funding, okay? But I would say primarily just focus on the school where you will get a supervisor, okay? If you, and another thing is depends on your GPA and other things. I would say if your GPA is not in a 4.0 out of 5.0, my advice personally would be stay away from those top five schools because the competition is those guys, they only listen to, sometimes they only listen to like very high GPA, because students that graduated from the department that are all these dean list students, these students that are 4.0 out of 4.0, 3 point, because they use 4.0 here, right? 3.8 out of 4.0. And those ones are interested to do masters, they will just quickly consider those ones, right? Those top students, they want to enter the, in the US, everybody want to enter Harvard, Cambridge, Harvard and Princeton and Yale and all those, it just busts their, they want to
Ivy
enter
League.
the Ivy League. So if you are smart, if you just avoid, if you don't have first class, just avoid those guys. There are a lot of other universities around, University of Texas, University of North and South, Carolina, and those University of Kentucky. So you might not hear of Kentucky that much, or University of St. Louis and all those other, you might not hear of them, but they still have funding. Okay. And those top students, they don't like coming to that school. And to be honest, it doesn't matter because it's the same. There is no, once you graduate, you graduate. And even here, they don't put class of degree. Once you have your bachelor's, you have bachelor's. There's nothing like first class on your certificate. They don't put that. Right. So I would say if you look at the ranking of university, just search based on which school has, don't focus on the name of the school. Focus on which school has the professor that you are interested in. That is what you should focus on. For example, for myself, I was focused on Memorial University because I liked their nutrition research. So I wasn't even thinking about University of Toronto because I just liked the nutrition research, even though Memorial University is not like the top ranked, but they still have funding. And another thing is, it depends on the professor. There might be a professor in a low rank school that has more funding than a professor in a high rank school. So it's not just about the school, it's about the professor. Yeah.
Okay, I think we asked one of the questions before I move forward. I think someone asked earlier that what is the easiest way to contact a supervisor?
Yeah, so
okay, answer that first.
Yeah, so email is actually the best bet. Email is the best bet, and don't call them. I actually, if you watch my video, I was so frustrated. To be honest, I got so frustrated that I cannot keep on composing email, and it worked for me. It worked for me because the professor that I finally got, I saw the advert on his website, so I just called and said, hello, my name is Peter. I saw an advert on your website. You mentioned that the person needs to have this certificate. I just wanted to ask, is there any other additional thing? Me, I know that there is no additional thing. Okay, so I just want to create that. Yes. So when I sent my email, I said I was one that called you. That I was one that called you. So, but from my experience here, like even having multiple conversations with professor here, it is not, you might be lucky. Okay. Even for my PhD, myself and the professor, we already met in a conference, in Ontario. I did a presentation and then I came out second, like in whole of nutrition in Canada. And the professor just loved my presentation and she's into lipid research, right? she was also gossiping with my prof that this was a student that might steal, this was a student that was talking to my master's supervisor, and this was a student that might, that was out of joke, right? She was not jokingly saying it. Me, I did not know. It was my lab colleague that now told me the gist that this professor, she get eye for you. You understand? She get eye for you. She get crush for you. You understand? So, so actually I kept that in my mind. So when I was about finishing my master, I just picked up my phone and I just called her directly because it's much easier. So now I was calling using the lab phone to call her. So she just kind of know, or she know the lab, she know the professor's name. So I just say, oh, this is Peter, about finishing my master's, I'm thinking about PhD. And that is what we call the law of timing. Okay, just worked for me. The law of timing. She just say, "Oh man, I just got a funding, and it's a biochemistry kind of thing. I'm looking for somebody with your it's lipid. I'm looking for someone with your background." I say, what am I waiting for? Then that was she said, oh, she's in a conference now. She's in Poland. When I come, apply. So that was the only. I didn't contact any other professor for my master's, for my PhD. So the fact that it worked like that, the law of timing just worked for me, and I contacted her at the right time. Okay, so phone calls, I would say email, because I've spoken to some of them and they are so mad at when students actually call them from outside. They don't like it, to be honest, right? So email is still the best, but the email has to be top priority because some of them, one of them was telling me how offended she was by some emails that she read. So please make sure you compose your email, because if you send a very terrible email from a certain country, in their mind, they look as if everybody from that country, that's how they send emails. So please make sure you get proper coaching before sending an email. Yeah.
Yeah, this question.
I think you are very right about it. There was a professor I mailed one time like that, and the professor was like, every year I receive 100 mails. Says not everything I attend to. I look for those that has a good organization. So people
Yeah.
work on writing a draft of their email. Yeah. Next.
So I think last question from someone here. I read biochemistry for both BSc and MSc. I had 2.2 out of 4 for BSc, while 3.2 out of 4. Now I have 4 publications and like 2 years experience. What is the success rate? Should I go ahead to apply for PhD or MSc? I see some schools ask for 2.75 out of 4 for BSc. Would they use my MSc to admit me, or what can I do?
People I've probably received this question a million times, and when I was in my last graduate program committee, so I was with the admission officer of my department, and then there's a lady, she's like the graduate secretary. There's another professor, she's like kind of the director of enrollment and all that. So I asked him the same question that people are asking me this question. Somebody has low GPA, for BSc, and their masters was quite good, right? So what do you think? The prof said, well, I consider. So what the lady said is that if you are going to apply for another master's, okay, or let's say if you're applying for a PhD, because if you're applying for a PhD, there's also going to be a minimum requirement. She said they are going to count the courses that you did for your master's. Okay, so if you probably took a lot of courses for your master's, they can start count. Normally they count like 60 credits. So they can start counting the 60 credits from your master's down to probably your 4th year. So it depends on the number of courses you take. Yeah, you took during your master's, right? So she said, if that's okay, right? Then it's fine. The other professor said, well, if you have publication, he can make a case for you, even though the GPA is low, because the department are actually the ones that make decision on the admission. and they send it to the School of Graduate Studies to send the admission letter, even though you have GPA less than the requirement, okay, they can make a case for you and say this student has publication, they have research experience, so the person will be able to cope, right? It's not going to be a special case. So the department can override that your low GPA. So another thing is you can try both, okay, whether direct PhD or masters. But if you are applying for PhD, it's going to be more rigorous in terms of the requirements, okay, because they'll be looking at your BSc and some other things like that. What I usually advise people, if you can get a master's, okay, because now you can say, even though my GPA was low, I did my master's was good. So I want to kind of apply, I want to get more research experience before starting my PhD, okay? If you actually apply for master's, after 1 year, you can switch to PhD without having to write a master's thesis. That is what a lot of people do. If you actually have in mind to do PhD, start with the master's. After 1 year, switch to a PhD, okay? Because PhD, it's like 4 years commitment. So it's really hard for professors to just give that commit to say we accept you. You understand? But if you start with masters and then you do a rollover, it's okay. But I would say give it, especially since you have publication and research experience, give a try to both looking for masters and then looking for PhD. Anyone you get, it's fine.
Yeah, someone just had that. How can he or she join your mentorship class program? Because he has
Yes.
some questions that we would like you to trash.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to, you can check out my website. Can I leave the link in the chat?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
do that.
Okay. Let me just send to everyone. So just contact me, check my website, or I generously try to respond. I chat on WhatsApp because I know that sometimes I don't like email chatting. It does take a lot of time, to respond, go back and forth, So sometimes I've sent my website, so you can check that. And then I also do have like a WhatsApp, if you check my website, my WhatsApp number is there, so you can reach out to me and then just mention that you were in this, in this talk. So if you say we're in this talk, I'll listen to you more. Okay. Yeah. So
Thank
that's
you.
kind of how you can reach me. But probably at the end of the day, I will also share, my YouTube, so that I do like tons of video. Well, I'll talk about that later on.
Okay. I think that was all from my end, Samuel.
Okay, please, before we round off today's section, do we still have any other please to all our audience do online? Because this is a rare opportunity to have him here. So I would like you to please unmute yourself if you are bold enough, and if you don't have the courage, you can act it.
Okay, good evening.
Yes.
Good evening.
So thanks for the wonderful webinar rather. It's been interesting and educative. All right, please to our seminarian or webinarian now.
I have not been to seminary school. You don't see my title neck. I'm not.
Please,
Okay.
could you please direct us to those websites where we can get schools that are not competitive? So, for instance, I studied English education in OAU, my first degree. Second degree, I studied MA as well, Master in Arts. And by God's grace, at least with all what you have said, I have a good qualification. So, and then I also have 8 publications now, 3 submitted already.
Wow.
So
that's
what?
good.
So
That's good.
I want to know, please. What I just need is that can I get those list of schools that are not competitive, so that I will not waste my time competing with.
So can I share my screen for like 5 seconds?
Sure.
No problem.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You can.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if you just go to, let's say, If you go to list of schools, let me see. Can you see my screen?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
sure.
can see.
Okay. Let me see. University rankings. Can I spell university? Okay, I think I can. Okay. If you go to university rankings in Canada, okay, and then let's say anyone is fine, okay. So you definitely see a list. This one is not very exhaustive. Let me look for another one. Let's see. Okay. So anyone, I don't know why this one is not, this one doesn't have. So let me see if I can
No,
just
I think
anyone.
I think I think I think those you were picking are saying best universities.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I
That's
think I've seen this one is good. Okay. So if you do something like this now, so for example, University of Toronto, McGill, UBC, University of Alberta, they are this is kind of the Canada ranking, right? So if you go
Canada
down,
is English.
yes, yes. So if you go down, it starts saying like Dalhousie University, Victoria, Saskatchewan, Memorial University, Regina, So as all of University of Winnipeg, to be honest, these are great universities, right?
Wow.
Brock University, Wilfrid Laurier. So I would say all these first guys, 1, 2 to number 10. I mean, if you made the requirement, it's fine. But if you just kind of scroll down, University of Victoria, great. University of Saskatchewan, I have a friend doing PhD there. Great university, right? Memorial University, great. University of Regina, I would say probably if you can stay away from this, for example, University of Quebec and Montreal,
French.
uh kind of French related, so you can stay away from that, except you can speak French very well, but I'll say stay away from those French, university. Apart from that, University of Lethbridge, great university. Winnipeg, the University of Northern British Columbia here, one of the cheapest universities you can also find. So that's kind of how you see the ranking.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I will contact you through your website or on
Sure,
WhatsApp.
sure,
But
sure, no
please
problem.
help also during the if we are going to join your coaching process so that you don't bill us in dollars.
No,
The
no,
way
no. See,
people over there talk about dollars. In Nigeria, dollars currently now.
no, it's no worry. When you reach out to me, you see the story for yourself. I have, for those of you that are, I don't know, those of you that are Christians here, that go to church. The Bible talked about the fact that, Jesus, because he was in that same position, right? So he is able to intercede for, because he felt it, right? So I was there. So I understand the process and everything. So that's why I always do my best, that's why I actually started doing my mentorship, because I know I don't want people, in fact, like my professors, sometimes when they send them an email, sometimes they refer them to me to tell me to coach them, the people first, to know how to send emails, right? So it's reasonable. Don't worry, just reach out to me. We will come to a common ground.
Thank you. All right. God bless you.
Yeah,
Very good.
I think someone asked the question. David, can you ask
Oh
the question?
yeah, I think Fabume was raising up her hand. I don't know if she's still doing that. So there's another question. Is it always good to mention you are on a PhD currently? Because I am making use of the free app waiver for the USA, and I didn't include I am on a PhD. I just use it as a research experience, which I stand in my CV. I think yes, it's not necessary. I don't know your opinion anyway, but I don't think
Yeah,
it's
it is. It is not necessary, because as far as you haven't completed it, so you're not obliged to, because it's actually, they will say completed, right? It has to be something that's completed. But if you are contacting a professor, and probably you are in your second year of your PhD, and maybe for some reason, which is, it might not be the best to say you're leaving the PhD, maybe you're doing your PhD in your country, you know, for some reason, if you explain yourself very well, probably maybe the research funding for the PhD got finished midway, right? Planning to apply for another PhD now. That's kind of why you're contacting them. It's fine, but for the most part, you don't have to. But if that is the only thing you have to justify your gap, okay, you can just mention it to the professor, but not so just weigh, weigh how long it has been. If you want to use that as a recent experience, it's still fine as far as you are able to justify and explain what you did. It's fine.
All right. If you need Smart 5, can you ask a question? You're raising your hand. Then Ayo Ebolor, you can ask after that.
All right. Yeah. Good evening. Thank you very much for this webinar. I question was asked about scholarship of student loan rather from Empower. Because personally for me, I'm looking out MBA. Okay, though I'm kind of a fresh graduate. Okay, I just rounded up NYSC last 2 days. Let me just watch that I'm pushing out for now. And
so it's kind of breaking. I don't know if
I think your network is breaking.
Can you just type the question?
Can you type the question because we can't really hear you?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second person. Yeah.
Ayo Ebolor, your question.
Okay. Hi, good evening. Thank you for this session. It's quite inspiring.
Go ahead with your question.
Your question.
And I really have so many questions here that you over there kind of know.
I know I got
know a particular professor that might need this to never happen before. That okay, fine.
We didn't get it.
And the professor that is in need of a student, they like you just.
So are you saying that a professor? Sorry, can you
being in the competitive?
I think the network is. We can't hear you very well. Can you recap, please?
I'm saying that. Okay, I'm saying is it possible? Okay, I'm saying that is it possible that a professor that is in need of students or like a student that has funding, then like of somebody that also fits into the supervisor's role? Is it possible that you do kind of a referral instead of the person being in the competitive pool? Like now, like okay, for like example, your own supervisor has a funding, and then I now reach out to you, then like you now see me as maybe like a good student, the fit and everything. Does that happen for referrals? Like, does it happen? Is it possible?
Yeah. Connection, connection. Connect me, connect me. So I think I kind of have a bit of experience on that, and for the most part, you might only know professors. Okay, for me, I only know probably maybe few professors, because when they are applying for the funding, you will know, right? Oh, be running, but when they get the funding, you will not know.
You won't know.
Yeah. So they will not announce it when they get it, For that part, it is very it is a, how will I put it? It happens. Okay, it happens. So there was, okay, let me share this experience with you guys. A friend of mine, his girlfriend was applying to my school, and then she actually saw my professor, and the professor so she saw my professor's really of interest, so she was interested, and then she messaged her, and then they started talking, right? And then the conversation came up one day. My friend already told me that he's my prof, right? So but I didn't just want to bring the thing up. But one day the prof was just talking about, oh, there is this student from Nigeria that she's kind of thinking about. I'm like, oh, yeah, my friend was also telling me about contacting somebody at the U of A, like in this department. Her name is oh, she said, yeah, that's the person. I said, yeah, it's my friend's, girlfriend, right? So my friend is doing PhD here, right? So I was like, well, I can't vouch for the student because I don't really know 100% of the student, but I know his guy. His guy is very smart, so definitely the guy will not go with a dollar. You understand? So 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 I can say that for her to be able to contact you, and she will be good, right? Because the reason why you have to be very conservative about those kind of things is if you recommend people and at the end of the day they come and underperform,
It will affect you.
it affects you, right? That's why you're always very careful with the recommendations. That's what is how everything happened. And you have to prove yourself. Even though I recommend you in interview, you have to, even though I said, well, I know the person, yeah, she's, the university, she finished from, yeah, university, because sometimes they will ask about the university. I say, yeah, it's good. She still had to do an interview with her and then do a presentation with her. So you have to prove. This one is not like somebody recommended me, whether you are good or not, So you have to be the best. It happens, but I would say it might not be the best to reach out to students in a particular lab and tell them to talk to their professor for you. That is not a good thing
Not
to
a good
do.
approach.
Okay, because sometimes they might not even know. Even sometimes my professor might have some funding. I might not even be aware because my own is just to collect my money, right? Once you pay me, I'm okay. I'm glad you have the money to pay me. So might not really know. So it happens. Recommendation happens. Just one more story. A lady. So that's at Memorial University, right? So when the lunchroom and the professor came and said, "Oh, there is this student, somebody applying from Nigeria, and the person is from Ambrose Ali University. Do you know that university? Is it a good university?" Say, that's where I finished from now. Of course, am I not good to you, right? So it's a good school, right? It's a good school. So the moment I said that it's a good school because I finished from there, so I have to definitely protect the reputation of my university. I say, well, it's good, right? And then and I just asked, oh, what's the then and I asked which department? He said biochemistry. I said, that's my department now. Most students there, they are very smart students too. And then I said, what's the person's name? He mentioned the name. Can you believe that this person was actually like a senior colleague of mine that was actually that time she used to give me material because when I was in second year, she was in like 400 level. I said, yeah, I know. I just said, well, I know her very well, and then because that time she even used to take us tutorials, so she's going to be able to teach for sure because she taught us before, and that was it. So the professor actually accepted her, and she's currently doing her PhD now in the department, right? So that's why this is a very small world, though. That's why if don't treat people bad though, don't treat people bad because you never can tell. I would have been able to spoil that person's opportunity and said, I know that person. It was on a very very unserious. That would have been the end of it, you
Yeah.
know. So that's why you have to treat people, right. But I would say best reach out to them, directly.
All right. Next question. Umar Ahmed, are you here? Umar Ahmed.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, good evening.
Good
good evening.
evening.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a pleasure to be one of the participants of this Zoom meeting. And I would like to extend my greeting to Charlie and Peter, because I've been following him for quite some while now, and it's a very good man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. The question I have is that because I finished not quite long, so I don't have publications. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
We
I can
can,
hear you. Go ahead.
yeah, I don't really have any publication yet, so I don't know if that would be all right.
So when did you finish? Or what did you say you finished your bachelor's, your BSc?
I finished from biochemistry 20
When?
that should be 2018 stroke 19 18 19 yeah 18 section.
To be honest, for BSc, publication is not a it's not a major criteria. Like what if you have it is good. When I applied, I had zero publication, so publication is not a if you have it because it is really tough to be able to publish your bachelor's thesis. Even here, like 95% of students are not able to publish their bachelor's thesis because it's really tough, right? What they are looking at for what you can sell yourself is that you have done a project and a thesis. You wrote a 50-page or 30-page thesis. That is your research experience that you're going to sell to them. You've done a seminar presentation, right? You've done an industrial training. So those are the things that you sell to them. So I would say, if you don't have publications, don't worry, just go ahead and contact them.
Okay.
All
So
right.
what I want to do is that for the industrial training, the seminar, I can just add these things up now when I'm writing to the supervisor.
You can put like your industrial, you can put those ones in your CV,
Your
you can put
CV.
those ones in your
Yeah.
CV. Yeah, so you don't need to mention that in your seminar
Email.
topic, those ones. And just the only thing you can mention is your thesis project title. Or you can mention that, I did a final year project on, in Nigeria, it's always leaf, effect of mango leaf on diabetes in rat. Everybody's always doing leaf, right? So you can just add the title. They just want to see, have you done a research? That is what is that's most important to them than even your public. If you have publication, fine, but if you don't have, just use your research experience and then put other things in your CV.
Okay. The last question, sir, is that I recently checked out one University of Saskatchewan. So because I finished from biochemistry Uniben. What I did was that I had to check biochemistry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I finished from biochemistry Uniben. So what I did was that I had to check for the professors that are over there at the University of Saskatchewan. Like most of them because my project that I did, my project is related to something like we did plants really close to plant biochemistry because we were checking for some almost effect of some chemicals like effect of potassium, calcium, and others, as in whether it will increase the blood pressure or it will not affect or rather decrease it. When I was checking for that particular university, no, I didn't see these supervisors, if their research areas is not directly connected to mine, would is there need to say apply or I just check for that university that as in other supervisors of other universities that the field is connected to mine?
Okay. Somebody just said, what was this? Somebody said, is this your project topic? Effect of Maggi leaf on alloza-induced diabetes. No, I think that was somebody.
That is not mine.
Don't go and don't go and kill this rat to it. Give them. I know very soon now people will be doing research effect of Nigerian jollof rice on, in diabetes in this rat model. Anyway, back to your question. For bachelors, okay, or for masters, it doesn't have to be your research area at all, okay, at all. My my research project was on beta carotene and yellow cassava, whatever kind of thing. So it is about what moving forward, okay, moving forward because you're just starting your career, right? So moving forward, you've done all of this because your project is not really what you are actually interested in because they just assigned you to a professor and the professor gave you topic. Not necessarily that's what you're interested in, right? So think about your long-term plan. For example, for myself, I did some courses in nutritional biochemistry, pharmaceutical biochemistry, biotechnology. I just fell in love with nutrition, over pharmaceutical biochemistry. So moving forward, my email was, I created my own story around I love nutrition because I did, in my fourth year, I did a course on nutrition, and then that's kind of moving forward. So that don't even bother about your research topic. Okay. Focus on your overall big area. Even though you want to do cancer and natural products or as the case may be, reach out to them. Okay, just tell them, in my fourth year, I did some courses in molecular biology, and then, we did some few things on cancer, metabolic cancer, and cancer-related stuff. For now, they just need you to have the theoretical knowledge of the area you are getting into. If you have that theoretical knowledge, you're okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. I think we have just 3 questions. I'll just ask them. If you need not 11, are you still here?
I think he asked a question. He already asked the question. School loan. I think
that's Math 5. There's if you need note 11.
Okay, what is it?
Okay, well.
Hello, good evening.
Okay. Oh, yeah, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
I'm here. I'm Vivian.
Oh, Vivian.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Peter, for this webinar.
No problem.
Can you people hear me very well?
Yes,
ma'am. Yeah, we
can hear you.
Okay, so please, I need to know. In Canada, are there schools that give fee waiver? Non-schools, or you have to write to them when you're applying? That is my first question. Then the second question that I have is, I recently saw a professor that advertised for opportunity University of Alberta, that is radiology and diagnostic imaging. I'm really interested in that. So, and one of the criteria is that person should either from physics or other related courses. They mentioned physics particularly because that's my first degree. So I wrote to him today. Although initially I was trying to inquire about the department. So I found out that the professor is the graduate coordinator. So I wrote to him first as the graduate coordinator before I now went in more further on the website to discover that he has a research group. So I wrote him the second time. So I don't know if that would affect my application. I don't know if maybe writing him twice at the same time. I wrote first to make inquiry as the coordinator. Then before I now found out that he has a research group. So I now told him again that I'm interested in his in being among the research students. So would that really affect it? Maybe he might be thinking that I didn't make my research well before coming to him to ask for about the other lecturers, other supervisors. So please enlighten me more.
Yeah. So the first is that Vivian the artist.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because the voice looks very very familiar. So okay, cool. So to be honest, I did a video recently about schools in Canada waiving application fee, So I talked about like low application fee schools and then probably like one school that is waiving waiving their $50 and you even have to get a discount code. So
Okay.
at the end of everything, from all of my research, to be honest, I would say if you really want to get good schools, you should be ready to pay application fee. So I don't like, I don't like painting things to people. Okay. So
Okay.
if it is $100, $120, if you have gotten a supervisor and you apply for admission, it is the application fee that is left. Those are some things you can on your own, or maybe you talk to, friends, family, as the case may be, they will be willing to assist. So I would say live in Canada, in US, you will see good schools with application fee waiver. But for Canada, I would say just leave that topic, because it will all those universities, Saskatchewan, Dalhousie, Alberta, Manitoba, Winnipeg, Memorial University, they want to, take your money for the application fees, right? So I would say, yeah, just, you won't see good schools that are waiving application. And then for the second part, where you messaged, him twice, sometimes these people, they have so many emails that sometimes if you send them one and maybe they are, what was the interval between the first and the second one?
Like an hour or close to 2 hours. After I sent the first one and now went back to the website and then discovered and started writing again. So before I was able to finish composing, I think an hour.
So you sent him an email as a graduate coordinator, right?
Yes, making an inquiry, asking if there are other professors I could write to.
Okay. And the second one was specifically to him as his supervisor.
Yes. I only changed the subjects. I now told him in the second one that I am not applying for him to be my supervisor.
It's these people, they know, right? They understand the situation that students pass through, and sometimes their website is even confusing. Okay, so they
Sure.
know all of those times. So sometimes you might even send a wrong person an email. Maybe you're planning to email the grad coordinator. Email another professor. It's fine. Okay, as far as whatever second email that you sent, is still, it's relevant, targeted to the professor, I would say, nothing to worry about. Okay. And I would just say, look at as many schools as possible. Have like a bucket list of like 30 professors in mind. Because sometimes if you say, oh, I have this one professor in this school, and then you email that professor, and then you're waiting for their response, you don't really know whether they have funding or not, right? So the best professor you have in mind that you really love their research interest might already be, occupied, might already be occupied, the same way they usually say, if you are not yet married because you're looking for a beautiful lady, all the beautiful ladies are already married, so, so I would say look out for, just be sending, if you send to one and they don't reply, go to another. You can come back to that professor after like maybe 1 or 2 months and resend. It's like lottery. You don't know which of them is going to. It's just about, sometimes it's not even about your class of degree. It's about timing. You can have 5.0. In fact, you can have 6.0 out of 5.0, first class upper. First class upper. If it is not the right timing, if they don't have funding, they will not accept you. You understand? So sometimes if they say they are not accepting students because they don't they are actually telling you the truth, because they are not permitted to accept students when they don't have funding, because as a research student, they are supposed to pay your tuition and other things, right? You're supposed to cover your tuition and cost of living, because you will not expect me to be working from 9 to 5, 6 in the lab, and then at the end of the day, I still have to go and do all the part-time job to be able to raise money for my tuition. It doesn't just make sense, right? So I'll just say keep sending. Once you send one, just keep sending. But since you already messaged him as a professor, that's
Okay. Papo, thank you for that. Papo.
Okay.
Papo, can you ask your question now? Okay, he's not online. So let's just ask this question. I want to add, please, what's your view of applying for study loan to push for an MBA? Like applying for study loan to push for an MBA, wouldn't it be a red flag for visa acceptance? Or you rather advise and focus on personal save ups and loans from loved ones to push for a 1 or 2 years business related diploma courses? Rounded up service on Thursday, studied insurance and run an event planning, and also writing a startup. Yeah, that's the question.
Well, for that loan thing, I've seen somebody here that actually came with a study loan, you know. So then I've also seen people that they deny, you know. So it depends on the study loan that you're taking and the loan agency, because I don't know if it's Empower something. For Empower, you know, because they have a reputation with the Canadian universities and the Canadian universities, they are the one that pay the tuition directly. So if you say you have a loan from Empower, then and you still gotten the letter, based on track record, the visa officers know that these people, there's a high tendency for you to get for them to be consistent and to stay to their word that they are going to give you. Okay, so if you go and take loan from maybe this community meeting, they said they are going to give you loan. So you can't really guarantee that they are going to be there when you need the money, right? So I'll say if you want to take a study loan, make sure it is an agency that has a reputation with the Canadian universities and that other people have used as well. If you have that, fine. Then if you have your personal service, you want to use that, you're doing business, you can also use that, but your proof of funds needs to be strategically positioned, There has to be, what have you been, if you are self-employed, how long have you been doing the business? How much are you making? You can't just say I have a business and then you go and send like 5 million to 10 million once in your account, or in the name of your business, right? So those are the strategic things I also walk people through in terms of looking at what are you doing, right? Number one, and then how can we best build funds for you. Personally, I don't do funds for any, I can just advise, advise you on probably the best thing to do. Yeah.
Okay, think this should be the last question. Please, I'm applying to a school in the US. I've sent mentoring requests to professors in departments, but none has responded. In the application site, they asked to mention 3 professors and if I've been in contact with them. Should I say yes, since I've sent mail with no response, or no, since they have not responded? I want to submit the application as early as possible so that I can move on to the next one.
Well, if they ask you if you've contacted them, to be honest, if they haven't responded, so you can't really just say you've contacted them technically. You just send them an email, right? So they've not contacted means probably you've kind of reached a conclusion technically, right? So you can say these are the ones that you have interest. It's better to say these are the ones that you are interested in. Yeah, so that probably might be the best thing to do. If you send them an email, they've not responded, I would say just keep sending, keep trying, and then make sure your email it's good enough. You can check samples online. I've done a couple of videos on that, about how to also email a professor as well. Just make sure that your email is in the best one, because sometimes they don't reply because the email is not good enough, or they just decide not to reply because they don't have the funding.
Okay, I think I'll answer this question. What if the application is to a non-English speaking country like Germany or France? Do I need to provide an evidence of proficiency? I think based on my experience, there are some courses in Germany are taught in English, so you don't have to provide an evidence. But it can also support the application to give you maybe a walkover of some stuff. Same thing as France. Some courses are taught in English. But for you to be able to do some part-time jobs, you may need to learn how to speak German or French. In South Korea, the same thing. You don't need to speak Korean before they give you a visa or anything. English is enough, but you may need to learn Korean language when you get there to be able to like get a job or like communicate in your day-to-day activity. I think that's all about that. Okay, one person asked, what's the rate of getting professors that have research area in cancer and the natural products? What is the rate of professors working on cancer natural products? I think cancer
There
is a very
are,
big field.
it's a very, in fact, that's what I'm working on, right? So there are tons and tons of professor in, if you just go, so, and one other thing I want to mention, okay? So if your interest is in cancer, there might be Department of Nutrition,
Yeah.
and there are researchers in cancer. There might be Department of Physiology, there are researchers in cancer. There might be Department of Biochemistry, there are researchers in cancer. Pharmacology in cancer, right? So that's why sometimes if you are in biochemistry or whatever, or chemistry, you can search around masters in biochemistry, nutrition, pharmacy, they all kind of, work together, right? So it not just the name of the department. It is, for example, in my department, there are people that do clinical work, right? So there are, for example, a PhD student in my lab. She has never had a pipette since she started her PhD because her work is mostly in the clinic, right? She works mainly with people, but we do all the animal work and everything, right? So yeah, there are lots of them, a lot.
Yeah, also, yeah, to justify that, I think I once knew a professor that is in chemical engineering and he work on cancer cells.
Yeah,
So
see, yeah,
different. We have this is what we call convergence feeds right now, like depending
yeah.
on your study or whatever it is. So I think this is the end. I've come to the end of the
Infinix Note 11 Pro.
Note 11. Oh, I think he's asked question already. So I think we've come to the end of today
Okay.
webinar.
Yeah,
And
before we
So
end, I was able to ask these two questions, Scholar Peter. For the
yeah,
proof of funding, how many months is required? Is it 1 year?
4 to 6 months is fine. 4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months. Okay.
Yeah,
And for
yeah.
PhD, like when you are talking, you said for masters, not important for publication. For PhD also, is it the same?
For publications,
For PhD applications,
do you mean if you have
for
publication, if it's an advantage?
if you don't have, is it disadvantage?
If you don't have, you can still get for sure, okay? But it's best to have at least manuscript in preparation, okay?
Okay.
Manuscript in preparation from if you've already done them. Another thing is that sometimes you probably do a what's it called? A master that is a course based. Especially if you go to UK, right, and you do a course based masters where you don't necessarily have, it's not like 100% pure research, so you have to kind of mention some of those things, right? That your research was a course based masters, but you definitely, and you probably did like a 3 months project, something like that. So you can argue, those, but in that case, your GPA really need to be, top notch at least. Now there is no publication, at least your GPA will now speak for you. But whether publication or publication, you can definitely expect to get PhD for sure.
Okay. I think someone is asking a question, Scholar Adedamola.
oh yeah, and the last question. Yeah, the guy about the MBA loan. So he said he was referring to Empower loan. And personally, will you say an MBA since it's expensive, is what the push, or is best to go for a more affordable course first and then upgrade?
I would say it depends on what your long-term plan is. In Canada, there's a way the system work. There are like the job market is so it's not irrespective of anybody. you know. So it doesn't mean that, oh, because you did a high paying MBA, it means you're going to get a high paying job. So not just doing an MBA, okay? Like I mentioned, what is your game plan? All right, that is most important. Why are you even doing an MBA? You know, and do you have any business related experience or whatever? You know, so if the game plan is fine and you on your own, you think that you want to do an MBA for maybe you want to get a job, you know, as a business analyst or whatever, you know, any other thing, right? It's fine. You can always try to get it if you're going to MBA, try to go for a university that is kind of, affordable.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we've come
Thanks a
to
lot.
the end. Yeah. God.
Do we still have any
that's
other before you guys go? Okay. For those that haven't, so if you just go, if you want to connect, the easiest way to actually connect with me is still through my website. So if you don't mind other videos that are coming up, okay, I know you are seeing some videos that you don't. For those that are interested in US, this TFE guy, he's a very good
Yeah,
resources
is
on
it?
US.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
it too. I saw it too.
yeah. So if you just type my name there, Peter Isesele on YouTube. So this is my channel. So just subscribe. If you can comment on any of the video and say that you actually attended this seminar, you know, then it might be better for me to, yeah. So I've done quite all of the things I'm talking about now. I've did a lot of video to answer, this question ranging from proof of fund, passport request, MBA, sending emails and interviewing people. So how to contact professors as well if you are coming with your spouse, so I've done like a lot of videos on that. So if you were thinking about work, you want to see a student how to get, accommodation, why I really done a video on why visa gets rejected, right? I've answered this question. So do well to subscribe. I think that's one of the things, that's the thing you can do for me now, in at least to encourage me, right? So everybody that attended now, make sure you try to subscribe, like, because I post like at least twice a week, and then, yeah, leave a comment, and then that way it's going to be easier for me to, respond to you. So yeah, I'm going to be counting the number of subscribers is 6,020 something now, and there are about 28 people. So if everybody subscribe, I think it should be up to 6,040. I'm going to check it later in the day. So make sure you subscribe, yeah, make sure you subscribe. And then you can also just check my, if you just go to gradness.com, www.gradness.com. So that's also my website. So you can, yeah. So this is my website. Just reach out to me, and then we'll pick it up from there. If you want to read some of the awards, just so just reach out to me. There's going to be a WhatsApp, link to reach me. So just reach me on the WhatsApp, and then that should be it. But I think the YouTube is the best for you guys, because you can basically any question I haven't been able to answer here, you will definitely see everything on my YouTube. And then in case I haven't answered the question, just comment on any of the video related, and then I'll probably do a video to answer that question. So that's basically it. And then thanks everybody, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Peter, we appreciate you for coming. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And we wish you the best. I hope the cold is not too much currently.
It actually started snowing like this last week. So
Yeah,
don't worry.